the big O. Today we are talking about orgasms, a primordial release of energy that happens when we have sex, or maybe sometimes when we're not having sex. Anyway, I think there's this misconception that orgasms are easy and binary and we'll know it if we've had it. But the truth is they're much more nuanced and complicated, especially if you have a vulva and vagina. So if you want to learn more, stick around. This video is for you. Hi, I'm Al. Welcome to Dame's Sex Ed and Pleasure channel for people with vulvas and vulva connoisseurs. When we think about orgasms, really there are two main types. There's a vaginal and a clitoral orgasm. But the truth is, you can have an orgasm from rubbing your eyebrow. Either way, whatever they are, an orgasm is a powerful release that involves contractions and a heightened state of consciousness. Today, we're gonna really kind of dig into the main differences and experiences that most people have from a vaginal and internal orgasm versus a clitoral or external orgasm, as those are the two most common pathways that people experience orgasm. Okay, Orgasms 101, AKA the class you secretly wished you had, but probably would have been a little awkward for your English or gym teacher to teach you, but also they really should have probably talked a lot more about pleasure during sex ed instead of just focusing on waiting till marriage and abstinence and trying to scare you out of sex. Anyway, an orgasm is the climax of sexual stimulation. You don't need actually genitalia stimulation in order to have an orgasm. You can have an orgasm from so many parts of your bodies, from your neck, your nipples. Kinsey even found somebody that was able to have an orgasm from touching their eyebrow. There's so many erogenous zones, and you can look in our descriptor for other videos where we talk about those erogenous zones. Anyway, I think the telltale signs, or the telltale signs that you've had an orgasm, is muscle contraction and a release of energy. It can sort of feel like a sneeze, but a lot better, even though I think sneezes can sometimes feel real good. Generally speaking too, there are a few different models of the sexual path, of our arousal path. The linear path, where we have arousal, a plateau, an orgasm, and then it's followed by a refractory period where we're not really interested in sex. This is really kind of more of the male or a penis haver's arc, where after they have an orgasm, they have a really strong refractory period where they basically can't really have an erection again for some time. This also can happen in vulva-bodied folks where we don't really necessarily want to feel touched after we've had an orgasm, but not always. In fact, there's a really cool circular model that I think does a much better job of describing a vulva-bodied person's experience of sexual pleasure. A much clearer way of understanding if we've had an orgasm is by our body's responses to stimulation. If you're feeling good and then all of a sudden you have a moment where your body has contractions, sometimes our toes cling up, and there's a release, a wave of pleasure throughout our body, that can be an orgasm. It does have a varying experience. Some orgasms are stronger than others. If we're trying to understand orgasms, I think a really great place to start is in our anatomy with the clitoris. The clitoris is actually a really complex organ in our pelvic floor right at the top of our vulva. In fact, the clitoris, what we tend to think of, which is this little head that pokes out right underneath the clitoral hood, is actually just the clitoral glands. And there's a whole structure that goes deeper within our bodies and actually touches the vaginal wall. It has these bulbs and wings that make it a lot bigger than we realize. It's comprised of 8,000 nerve endings, and when it's stimulated, it actually impacts another 15,000 nerve endings across our pelvic floor. The clitoris is also connected to our central nervous system and creates a neural pathway. So when we think about orgasm, it's not really just something that's happening in our side of our body, but it's also in our brains. Now that we understand the anatomy of the clitoris, we can get to the fun. Before I tell you how to stimulate your clitoris, I just want you to know that 70% of people say they need clitoral stimulation in order to have an orgasm, and 96% report that clitoral stimulation is a part of their most reliable route to orgasm. So if you are at home wondering why you're not having vaginal orgasms, know that that is totally normal and incredibly common. Now, how do you stimulate your clitoris? There are so many ways to achieve a clitoral orgasm. You can use your fingers, lips, you can use your partner's knee, your partner's pelvis, a bedpost, literally anything that you can rub up against. So we just talked about the clitoral orgasm, but now we're going to talk about the vaginal orgasm. Now, contrary to most films that you've seen, a vaginal orgasm is actually a little elusive. Actually, only 4% of people with vulvas in a recent study reported that penetration alone was their most reliable route to orgasm. Only 30% of women in a different study reported that they could have an orgasm from penetration. So if you're primarily having clitoral orgasms, that is completely normal. However, that doesn't mean that there isn't something to explore here and understand inside of our vaginas. So, if you want to explore your vagina, I highly recommend getting a toy or something that's a little bit longer than your fingers, because it can be hard on our own to really get up there and discover pressure points inside of us. So the most common pressure point that people have a lot of pleasure from is the G-spot. The G-spot isn't really just a spot. It's an area about 1.5 inches on our frontal wall that feels a little squishy. A lot of scientists believe, that's right, they're not positive because sex is understudied, but that the two legs of the clitoris go back into your body, into your pelvis, and hit the vaginal wall. So when you're hitting that vaginal wall, you're actually still stimulating the clitoris. Another thing I want you to know is that there are lots of erogenous moments in our vaginal wall, and it's great to find time on our own to explore our vaginal canal to find out what spots feel like our pleasure spots. And you wanna know what? It's pretty hard to explore your vaginal wall on your own. So I highly recommend grabbing a toy like Dame's Arc, for example, to explore our vaginal wall. Also, remember that whatever feels good for you is what feels good for you. So happy exploring. At Dame, we offer an array of toys that can help you explore your clitoral and vaginal orgasms. One that I think is great for both is Arc, because it can be used externally and internally. It's got a squishy beak that's great for clitoral stimulation, and also, since it's at the end of an arc, is great for applying pressure at different parts of your vaginal wall. We also sell a product called Palm, which fits in the palm of your hand. It is squishy and flexible, and it will move with your hips, so you can kind of follow the motion of the ocean and have a clitoral orgasm. We also have a really great product called Eva. Eva is really designed for partner play. It's got these bendable wings that tuck under the labia. It stays in place on top of the clitoris, and you can wear it during penetrative sex. We actually have a whole video about Eva, which is linked below. Lastly, we also have this product called Air. So it has like this nozzle, and then it uses air to kind of oscillate and create a tapping or oral sensation on your clitoris. It's really great for both arousal and clitoral stimulation. If you enjoyed learning about this, please like and subscribe, hit the bell, and you can also head over to dame.com/sexed where you can buy any of these products. Hopefully, this is better than your sex ed in school. It's been a pleasure. See you next time.